Hey everybody, this is Wendy. Welcome. I'm so excited you're here with me today. Before we even get started, I want you to know all the products I'm showing you today are available in my online store below the video. There's links there. I'm using the Holly Jolly Christmas Bundle, Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and a lot of Stampin' Blends and some ink colors. I'm using Pacific Point, Balmy Blue, and Night of Navy. I'm using some shimmer paint. I've got all kinds of things going on here that I'm using. So first stamping down my Santa and my trees, and then I'm going to color them. And I'm going to give you some tips for coloring. But while I'm coloring, I'm also going to kind of give you a little story time and fill you in on life. So I needed to stamp these and then get a piece of grid paper to put down underneath the cardstock that I'm coloring on, because when you use alcohol blend markers, I've got something sticky there. It's driving me crazy. I don't know why I didn't edit this out of the video, but whatever. Anyway, it's a miracle there's a video, to be real honest with you. And we'll get into that. So I've sped this up 4 times its normal speed because coloring is time consuming. It's one of the things I love about it, is that it takes time to make something beautiful, and I enjoy coloring, and so it's one of my favorite things. Going on the lines here that you can see that Stampin' Up! Has kind of pre-printed, if you will. And I'm making those dark, and then I'm going everywhere else and making it light. I'm using Shaded Spruce, light and dark combo blends. These are Stampin' Blends. These are alcohol-based markers. And I've always considered these markers to be what I would call a beginner alcohol marker. They're great for people who don't want to do a whole bunch of shading, who are new to alcohol markers, and are just wanting to get to learn how to use them a little bit. They're perfect for that. Their price point is really low. For an alcohol marker, they're $4.50, which is low, and or $9 for the pair if you want to get the light and dark. And you can get a whole collection of them, and they are just kind of a spectacular little item that Stampin' Up! Has. Here I'm using dark cherry cobbler, and I'm putting all my dark areas or shaded areas in first. So how do you know what areas to shade? If it's an area that's touching another area, or if it's laying on top of something. So here, for example, his coat would be laying on top of his pants. It would naturally cast a shadow. Where the bag meets his back, it would naturally cast a shadow. Where the bag rolls over at the top, shadow. Then we're going in with the light cherry cobbler and blending that out. And then we're going in with a dark real red. And a lot of people get a little nervous about combining, but I say just play with it and come up with your color combinations that will work. And you can see here, it's provided me a beautiful shadowing technique to do that. So you can use other markers to do your blending. You don't have to stick just with the light and the dark combo. Like I've done here, I've added the real red, and it looks great, and it gives you more shading and shadowing, which is perfect. Okay, so what's been going on with me? The rest of this coloring is just all very simple. Not even any shading, so we're not going to get too crazy. There's a little bit of shading on his belt, but for the most part, it's just straightforward. I'm using Pool Party, soft suede for the bear, some more shaded spruce and more cherry cobbler, and keeping things pretty bland for the toys that are in his bag. I really want the Santa to stand out. I don't really want all those toys to stand out and come forward, so I kept them pretty basic. I am using light smoky slate for all the areas that are supposed to be white, because you have to have shading where you're going to leave something white. Otherwise, it just looks weird. So add in a little bit of shading here and there, and that will make your white area look more white. I know that sounds insane and crazy and weird, but it's true. dark basic black for his boots with light, and then I'm using smoky slate on the top to give it the lightest look on the top where his boots would be the lightest. Okay, so my grandpa passed. I'm sure some of you have seen that on Facebook, and some of you have probably seen it on my blog. Clearly, I have not had a YouTube video up pretty much all of last week. And so, yeah, that's what's going on. My grandpa passed away. I'm actually recording this on the Wednesday prior to his services. I figured if I waited till after his services to try to do this, it would be too difficult. So, grief is a weird thing, right? I mean, here I'm using Balmy Blue to do ink blending. 1 minute I feel good. The next minute I feel bad. The minute after that I feel anxiety and frankly panic. And then I go back through it all over again. So it's a weird thing, and I've never really grieved like this before. It's been really difficult for me and my family, all of us. With his passing, you know, he was 96 years old. So there is a part of me that almost feels funny saying, you know, any of this, because it's like, my heavens, somebody cannot live forever. But he was just such an integral part of my life and my upbringing. If you followed me on my channel, you know that already. I talked about him all the time. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to function without him, to be honest. You know, on Sundays after the 49ers play, I expect a phone call from him. And I won't have that anymore. And I'm not exactly sure how to cope with that. So here I'm just putting water on and then daubing it up with paper towel. And then I'm adding the gorgeous Frost White Shimmer Paint on top of that. I'm just wanting to create a very snowy night sky. That's what my goal is here. As far as what's going on, we have lots of family coming in from out of state. If you follow me on my YouTube channel, you know that I have had lots of family visit over the last couple weeks because they were coming to see him, because it was very obvious he was in his last days. And so now we have that happening again. And so there's part of me, guys, that's just exhausted. I'm just absolutely wore out. And on stages next week. Stampin' Up's on stage, and I'm going all the way to Atlanta for that. And I have decided to go. I originally was going to stay home, but after really thinking on it and praying about it, I feel like my grandpa would want me to go. I feel like he would want me to try to function as normally as possible as soon as I could. And so I'm kind of going to honor him, to be honest. Doesn't mean I'll be awesome through the whole thing, but I'm definitely going to put my best foot forward. He was a really hardworking man, and I could see him being a little irritated with me if I was lacking on my commitments. I don't know if any of you that watch my videos are going to be attending Brian King's event, but I will be at that, which I'm excited about, and I will also be at Margaret Knight's event. So if you are going to the Atlanta on stage next week, catch up with me. Find me. Say hello. Okay, so I used the large stitched rectangle to cut out the center of this because I am making a shaker card, as it says in the title. So I need both these pieces though. So from here, we're just going to build the shaker. This video has been filmed over a week and a half's time. That is why the lighting is different, and it's like kind of crazy the way it all has come together, to be honest. Like pieces of this card were put together and made a little at a time. So the first thing I'm doing is lining up the frame as to where I want it to go on the card. And then I can put the center of that frame inside, and it will stay in place. So I'm just using snail adhesive, and then this will be my backdrop through my shaker window. So I'm going to hold that in place, and then I'm going to slip this into the center and glue it down. And I couldn't remember which way I turned it, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. It fits in there no matter what. So I went ahead and pushed it down, and then I'm able to pull the frame back up over the top. Okay, so on stage, yeah, that's what I was talking about. So yeah, going to on stage. Really exciting news. It was definitely a bright spot in my day or my week. Was on November 5th, Stampin' Up! Released the top achievers in their company. And I ranked number 17 in the world globally out of 50,000 demonstrators. Number 17 ain't so bad. And I ranked number 13 in the United States. So that's pretty dang cool. If you ask me. I was so excited. Of course, my shout out has to first always be to the Lord for blessing me with everything that He has blessed me with. Creativity, a supportive husband, having some business sense, all the things that I do that make this business work for me are blessings from God. There's just no doubt in my mind about that. So there's that. And then, of course, a huge thank you to my team members and my customers, because without you guys that order from me and team members that are on my team, I would not have that kind of ranking. And I try very, very, very hard to show my gratitude in all kinds of different ways, not just to customers and team members, but also to those that follow me. Like, even if you're just a demonstrator that likes watching my videos, you know, I love you for that. I'm so blessed that you watch my videos and enjoy them. So thank you for that. Okay, quick back to the card. I cut the window sheet, the acetate sheet. What did I cut it at? I want to say it's just a little under 4 inches. No, that can't be right. Yeah, yes, it is. Little under 4 inches and a little under 5 1/4. Because the whole frame itself, the outer side of the frame, is 4 by 5 1/4. So I cut it just a smidge smaller than that and then glued it on. Then I took our adhesive foam strips and ran them all around the edges of that shaker window. And now I am gluing down my trees. So I'm using Tombow Mono Adhesive, which you can get from Stampin' Up. It's like $4, I think, or $4.50, something like that. And I'm going to glue this down. And then I'm going to glue the other tree down. And I needed these to be flat because I did not want any sequins to stick to underneath them. The other thing about this is I could have stamped these trees directly on the inked background and then masked them. But I'll be honest with you, I have to be in the right mood to do masking. So I just thought it would be so much easier to color them and then hand cut them out. And that's what I did. So you didn't see that part of the video, but I did hand cut the trees out. There is no die for that. There is a die for the Santa Claus, and there is a die for the sentiment that you'll see at the end. And sadly, I never was able to film the sentiment part getting put on here. So you just have photos, but you'll get the point because everything else about the card's finished. So I'm just pouring down a bunch of different sequins that I have in my stash. So recently I realized that I have an extreme issue with sequins. There's so many of them. I have a whole drawer full of them. It's disgusting and embarrassing. So I'm like, okay, you've got to start using these. This is getting out of control. Thus the reason I started a shaker card series. So these are gorgeous, and I kind of want them to just look like glistening snow. That's my whole goal. My whole thought behind this card, I have some weird ideas. The whole thought for me behind this card was Santa is leaving the North Pole. So that's where my head was at when I was making this. I was like, oh, Santa's going to leave the North Pole. And so that's why it's kind of like this snowy, dark sky, and then you've got the Christmas trees, and I just had the hardest time getting this lined up correctly over this because I couldn't, when you're filming a video, you can't look straight down on anything because if you did, your whole head would be in the video. So whenever you're trying to do something, you're kind of always doing it at an angle, and it can be difficult. So anyway, there's my shaker. Isn't it pretty? I love all the shaker bits in there. And honestly, half the time I put the wrong amount and it's either too little or too much, and I got it just right this time. So I was excited about that, like Goldilocks, just right. Then I'm using my Tombow Mono Glue to add my Santa to the front, kind of off to the side, so you can still see those trees in the background. And I did kind of line those trees up before I ever put this card together to know kind of like where they would need to be. Because I wanted them to peek out. Now, hindsight, I probably would have moved them down a little bit. And I might have created some sort of a little something underneath them to make them a little more grounded, because I feel like they look a little like they're just floating in the air. But once I add the sentiment, you honestly don't notice the trees all that much. Okay, so here I'm using Crystal Effects that has shimmer stuff in it, and I'm going over his belt and his boots. I thought it would be fun for his belt and his boots to be glossy and shiny. And then the other thing that I decided to do was use the puff paint, the snow puff paint that's in the holiday catalog, and put it on his little hat. Now, the warning I have for you about this dang puff paint, it works fabulously, but it's really runny. So you have to like shake it a lot before you use it. And I don't think I shook it enough. So you got to give it a lot of shaking. And then you still have to be wary that it will run out quickly of the tube. But once you heat set it, it's phenomenal. Like, it's the coolest, puffed up, snowy look. I just love it. So I highly recommend getting it and just not being impatient with it. You definitely need to be patient. So see here, I'm squirting it in this basket first because I've messed up 2 projects now, squirting this stuff out and having it be too runny. And so I've learned my lessons the hard way. And so I'm trying to be more careful. And I still got a little bit too much on there, and it kind of got a little runny. I tried to fix it with the paper towel, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, this isn't going to work. I'm going to make a bigger mess if I try to fix it. And so I just went ahead and heat set it. In the end, this is how it came out. I think it is adorable. And if you want any of the products that I used today, there are links to them in the description of this video and over on my blog. I appreciate you watching today. I have a really awesome special going right now. If you spend $100 with me, you can choose a stamp set at $21 or less for free. So if you're interested in that, shop Love and Stampin'. Bye.